They told everyone I gave up, that I fell apart after he left, that I couldn't handle being replaced. Maybe I didn't fight hard enough. Maybe I was too quiet when I should have screamed. Or maybe I was healing, and they just couldn't see it. People think silence means surrender. But silence can be strength. And pain, it can be the loudest kind of teacher. She had my place. My man. My story, stolen like a coat draped over her shoulders. And still she called me. Not to gloat. Not to fight. But to ask a question that only I could answer. My name is Autumn Lane. I'm 29. I live just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I used to think I was the broken one. I met Caleb Weston when I was 23, freshly graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with a psychology degree and dreams bigger than my bank account. I had a journal full of life plans, grad school in the fall, marriage by 30, and someday a little townhouse with a porch swing and too many bookshelves. He wasn't part of the original plan. He just happened. He was 2 years older, worked in finance, always wore navy suits, and had this slow, southern drawl that made even apologies sound romantic. We met at a friend's wedding, me in borrowed heels, him leaning at the bar like he already knew the ending. I don't believe in fate, I said when he offered to walk me to my car. He grinned. Then let's just call it perfect timing. That first year felt like a movie montage. Road trips to Asheville, handwritten notes left on my windshield, midnight drives with old country music humming through the speakers. I told myself I was safe, loved, chosen. Caleb made me feel seen in ways my childhood never did. I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about feelings. My parents were practical people. Dad worked construction. Mom ran a small bakery. Their love was quiet, bills paid on time, food on the table, and unspoken rules about keeping your mess behind closed doors. So when I told them about Caleb, their reaction was muted. He works with numbers, my mother said, nodding approvingly. My father just grunted. As long as he treats you better than that last one. They didn't ask how I felt. They just wanted the facts. To them, Caleb was a box checked off. To me, he was the place I finally exhaled. Until I couldn't. It started small, late replies, work drinks that turned into 2 a.m. excuses, the way he'd compliment other women with a sideways smile that felt like a test. I tried to stay quiet at first. I didn't want to be that girl, the needy one, the insecure one. But some nights, lying awake next to a man who rolled away in his sleep like I was a stranger, the silence got too loud. Is something wrong? I asked one night, my voice barely above a whisper. He sighed, still scrolling through his phone. You always assume the worst, Autumn. I began apologizing for my own intuition. I watered myself down just to keep him close. By the time I found the lipstick stain on his collar, I wasn't even surprised. I remember holding the shirt in my hands, staring at it like it might confess. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I folded it and placed it in the laundry like it was any other Tuesday. Because that's what I had become. His background music, his soft place to land when the world tired him out. 2 weeks later, he told me he needed space. And 3 days after that, he posted a photo with her, Delaney Rivers, the girl with legs like a model and a bio that said, always manifesting crescent moon sparkles. They looked happy. Too happy. The kind of happy that stabs you just by existing. I wish I could say I cried for days, but the truth is, I froze. I became mechanical, answering texts with smiley faces, going to work, meal prepping quinoa bowls I never ate. I even commented, "You two look great," on that photo just to prove I was unbothered. Everyone around me nodded politely when I mentioned the breakup, but no one really asked. The silence was loud, familiar, expected. At Thanksgiving, my cousin Rachel whispered, "At least he upgraded." After seeing a picture of Delaney, my aunt patted my hand and said, "You'll find someone. There's still time." Still time? Like I was running out of it? In those first few weeks, I tried to be everything people said I should be, mature, classy, composed. I posted yoga selfies with captions about inner peace and rewatched rom-coms until they made me nauseous. But the thing no one tells you is that losing love isn't loud. It's quiet. It's brushing your teeth in a bathroom that still smells like his cologne. It's accidentally making enough coffee for two every morning. It's being ghosted by someone who used to kiss your forehead while you slept. I started seeing a therapist named Lee, who wore mismatched earrings and always smelled like cinnamon. The first time I cried in her office, she didn't offer tissues. She just waited. "Tell me what you miss the most," she said. I stared at the floor, not having to pretend I was okay. Grief isn't just for death. It's for the future you planned, but never got to live. It's for the version of yourself you lost while loving someone who didn't see you. My parents didn't understand. "She's just taking a break," my mom told a neighbor when I quit my job 2 months later. My dad nodded like it was all temporary. "She's always been emotional. She'll bounce back." I didn't correct them. I let them believe what they needed to. Because sometimes, starting over means letting the world think you failed. I moved out of our apartment and into a tiny one-bedroom with peeling paint and a view of a dumpster. It was mine, and it was quiet. I remember sitting on the floor the first night, eating cereal with a plastic spoon and whispering to myself,
"This isn't the end."
"It's just not the life I thought I'd be living." No one noticed I had started over, but I had.
And that was enough.
Healing didn't start with some grand epiphany. It started with an accident. A literal one. 3 months after moving into that tiny apartment, I slipped on black ice outside my building and twisted my ankle. Nothing major, just swollen pride and a bruised ego. My neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Ruby Collins, saw the whole thing and rushed out of her housecoat and slippers. "Young lady, the ice don't care if your heart's broken," she muttered, helping me up. "You still gotta look where you're walking."
She brought me soup later that night.
I thanked her and cried when she left. Not because of the pain, because someone had seen me. The next morning, I knocked on her door and asked if she needed help with groceries. She raised an eyebrow. "I'm old, not helpless." I laughed for the first time in weeks. That small moment became a ritual. Every Sunday, I'd walk her to the corner store and back. We'd talk about the weather, her late husband, her obsession with cooking shows, and eventually about me. "You ever think about working with old folks?" she asked one day, squinting at me. I shrugged. I studied psychology, but I never really followed through. "Well," she said, taking my arm, "maybe it's time you do something that makes you feel useful, not just look useful." I didn't tell her that one sentence rerouted my life. I started volunteering at the local senior center 2 weeks later. Nothing glamorous, just helping with tech basics. Teaching them to text their grandkids, open email, use apps. At first, it felt silly. Like I was playing pretend in a life that didn't belong to me. But then I met Mr. Henry Boyle, who hadn't spoken to his daughter in 4 years because he didn't know how to answer her FaceTime calls. Or Elaine, who thought airplane mode meant her phone would explode. I remember one moment especially. An elderly woman named Marta, whose hands trembled so badly she could barely type. "This machine hates me," she muttered, her voice tight with frustration. "No, it doesn't," I said, gently adjusting her glasses. "It just doesn't know you yet." She looked at me like no one had ever said that before. 2 weeks later, Marta's son called the center. He'd spoken to her on video for the first time in years. "She cried the whole time," he said, his voice cracking. "Thank you, whoever taught her." That night, I sat in my car long after the parking lot had emptied. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because for the first time in a long time, I mattered to someone. And it wasn't because I was pretty, or polite, or someone's girlfriend. It was because I helped. I began teaching more regularly. The center offered me a stipend. Eventually, I designed a simple program that broke down phone functions into color-coded flashcards. They printed them, laminated them, started calling it tech for silver souls. It wasn't a career, at least not yet, but it was purpose. I'd bike to the center with my hair in a messy bun, tote bag full of flashcards and chargers, and greet everyone by name. Some days were hard, frustrations, meltdowns, broken phones. But some days made everything worth it. Like when George, who never spoke above a whisper, screamed in joy after sending his first voice message. Or when Doris told me, "You brought my baby into my living room," after seeing her granddaughter's dance recital via video. I didn't post it on Instagram. I didn't brag about it to my family. I didn't even tell my friends the details. Because it didn't need an audience. It just needed to be real. I found myself changing in other ways too. I stopped following Caleb on social media. I donated the dress I wore to our last anniversary dinner. I bought a secondhand bookshelf and filled it with books about grief, growth, and joy. And I stopped pretending I had to look perfect to feel enough. I let my hair curl naturally. I started smiling in the mirror, even when no one was watching. One day, Mrs. Ruby looked at me across the hall and said, "You walk like someone who remembers who she is." And for the first time in a long time, she was right. I wasn't fixed. I wasn't fully healed. But I was no longer broken in the same way. This chapter wasn't shiny or loud. There were no trophies. No followers. No applause. But I was showing up. And in a world that constantly asks women to disappear after they've been discarded, that's revolutionary. It didn't make headlines. But it mattered. It started small, but it didn't stay small for long. Tech for Silver Souls grew faster than I ever expected. What began as color-coded flashcards and Sunday visits turned into a citywide program. The senior center connected me with other community groups, churches, and retirement homes. Suddenly, I was getting calls from people I'd never met asking if I could host workshops, train volunteers, speak to caregivers. I wasn't a tech expert. I didn't have a business plan. But I knew what worked. I knew how to explain things without condescension. I knew how to look people in the eye and say, "You're not stupid. You're learning." That mattered more than any degree. By the second year, we were onboarding over 1,200 seniors per month. We had a waiting list in 3 counties. I designed a mobile app with giant buttons, audio prompts, and no jargon. We called it Soul Sync. The local newspaper did a story. Then the state noticed. And one day, a representative from a national elder care foundation emailed me directly. "Your retention rate is the highest we've seen. 78% email open rate. That's higher than some Fortune 500 companies." I stared at the screen, not even sure how to process that. I was still living in that same one-bedroom apartment. Still drinking $2 coffee from the corner store. Still fixing routers and helping upload photos one tap at a time. But suddenly people were listening. Well, some people. My family? They didn't say much. Not even after the article came out. Not even when the community center renamed the tech wing after me. My mom mentioned it once in passing. "I saw something about your little project on Facebook," she said while folding laundry. "That's nice. You always were creative." My dad said, "Teaching old folks to click buttons? Real noble work." Then he changed the subject to my cousin, who got promoted at a law firm. I tried not to let it sting. But it did. There's something hollow about succeeding quietly in front of people who only value volume. I wasn't flashy. I didn't have a title they understood. I wasn't married, or pregnant, or climbing any ladder they recognized. To them, I was still the girl who got dumped and never really bounced back. "She's always been the free spirit," my aunt told someone at Christmas, like it was a consolation prize. No one asked how I felt running a growing nonprofit solo. No one saw the late nights, the tech breakdowns, the emails I sent from my bathtub because it was the only place I could breathe. But others did. Like Melissa, a 17-year-old volunteer who said, "I want to be like you. You're soft but you don't bend." Or Mr. Alvarez, who kissed my hand after his first successful PayPal transfer and said, "You gave me my dignity back." They saw me, and maybe that was enough. Still, every once in a while, I'd catch myself glancing at Caleb's life like a former inmate watching the guards from outside the gate. His social media was curated now: sunsets, brunches, couples yoga. Delaney always wore matching outfits and posted things like "Protect your pea sparkles" while tagging wine brands. They'd moved in together, got a dog, hosted dinner parties. It all looked clean, but it didn't feel real. One night, out of morbid curiosity, I clicked on an old photo of Caleb and me. We were in Charleston. I was laughing mid-bite of beignet. He was staring at me, half smiling. The comments were full of "couple goals, smiling face with heart eyes," and "y'all are perfect." Funny how many people can be wrong at once. I didn't cry. I didn't even sigh. I just closed the app, pulled my laptop back onto my knees, and got back to building the next webinar for a retirement home in Arizona. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. You can love someone deeply and still outgrow the version of yourself who needed them. My team grew. I hired 2 interns. I applied for a grant and got it. We partnered with a tech startup that helped us develop voice control features for our app. The app hit 20,000 users. 20,000. I stood in my kitchen one night, staring at that number on my dashboard. I just microwaved leftover soup. I was wearing fuzzy socks. No makeup. No one to celebrate with. But I felt proud. Not proud like, look at me. Proud like, I made this. From scratch. From pain. The kind of pride no one can give you. And no one can take away. I didn't need Caleb to see it. I didn't need Delaney to know it. But deep down, a part of me wondered, would they ever realize what they left behind? The call came on a Wednesday afternoon. I had just finished leading a virtual workshop with a retirement community in Tampa, one of our biggest sessions yet. Nearly 300 attendees. Everything had gone smoothly, except for one tiny hiccup when someone's grandchild unmuted mid-call to ask for more snacks. I was still smiling about it when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Charlotte, North Carolina. I almost ignored it. I get a lot of spam these days, marketing agencies, people offering me speaking gigs for exposure, not pay. But something about this one made me pause. I answered. Hello, I said, pulling my sweatshirt over one shoulder. There was silence on the line for a moment. Then, is this Autumn Lane? Her voice was soft, hesitant.
Young.
Yes, I said, curious now.
A pause.
Then, this might sound weird, but I think we've never met. But we have someone in common. I sat down slowly on the edge of my couch. Okay, my name is Delaney. Delaney Rivers. The name hit me like an unexpected punch. She didn't sound how I imagined. Not sugar-coated. Not fake. Just tired. I stayed quiet. Listen, I didn't call to cause problems, she rushed. I found your name through some old paperwork Caleb had from your apartment. Elise. I shouldn't have looked, I know, but it's fine, I said, still frozen. Why are you calling? Another pause. Then her voice broke a little. I need to ask you something. I waited. My heart was pounding. Did he ever make you feel like you were the problem? I closed my eyes. Delaney exhaled on the other end like she'd been holding her breath for months. I keep thinking I'm crazy, she whispered. Like I remember him saying things, but then later he acts like they never happened. Or he'll disappear for a day, then come home with flowers and say, I'm being dramatic. Her voice cracked. I'm not, right? I'm not imagining this. No, I said quietly. You're not. And suddenly, I was back there in my old apartment, clutching a shirt that wasn't mine, wondering how I became so small in someone's world. She was crying now. I didn't think you'd answer. I needed to talk to someone who gets it. I took a deep breath. I do. We talked for 20 minutes. I let her speak. I didn't trash him. I didn't say, I told you so. I just listened. She told me about the time he left her stranded at a dinner party. The way he always forgot to respond to her texts but never forgot to post. How he called her too sensitive when she asked for more affection. How he still mentioned my name sometimes, casually, like an echo he couldn't shake. He said you were obsessed with control, she said softly. But now I think maybe you were just trying to hold on. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I was, I said, until I realized I didn't need to. There was silence again. But this time, it felt like something settling. She laughed once, dry, almost bitter. You were never the problem, were you? No, I said. But it took me a long time to believe that. Delaney thanked me before she hung up. I don't know what I'm going to do, she said. But thank you. For being real. For not making me feel stupid. You're not, I told her. You're just waking up. After the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long time. Not because I was shaken, but because I wasn't. There was no rage in me. No triumph. No need to post a cryptic quote or scream into the wind. I felt calm. I walked to the window and watched a group of kids ride their bikes down the block, laughing too loud. Somewhere, someone was barbecuing. The air smelled like smoke and late summer. And in that moment it hit me. I hadn't been replaced. I had been escaped. Whatever he had with her wasn't an upgrade. It was a cycle. And the most powerful thing I ever did was leave it. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Delaney again. Just one line. Whatever you lost when you loved him, you got it all back. I see that now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Not because I demanded attention. Not because I sought revenge. But because the truth walked in by itself and refused to stay quiet. I didn't expect her to come in person. But there she was. Standing outside the cafe I always went to when I needed to disappear. A soft pink cardigan wrapped around her like armor, oversized sunglasses hiding the tired in her eyes. Her name was Camille, the upgrade he'd flaunted after me. I didn't hate her. She hadn't stolen anything. She'd just picked up the mask he handed her. The same one I used to wear. "Do you mind if I sit?" she asked, clutching her phone like it was her last shield. I gestured at the empty seat. She didn't sugarcoat it. "He doesn't talk to me anymore." "Not really. He comes home and stares at his phone." I tried everything. And then I found your name in a hidden folder in his emails. My heart didn't race. It just sank, deep and tired. "He saved voicemails from you," she added. "He replays them. The one where you sang him happy birthday, and the one where you said you forgave him." Forgiveness. He didn't deserve it. But I gave it once. Not for him, but for me. I stayed quiet. Camille was trembling. "He talks about you in his sleep. Like you're still there. Like you're this ghost." I finally spoke. "I'm not a ghost. I just stopped haunting myself." Her face fell. "What did he do to you?" I didn't go into detail. I didn't have to. My silence said everything. And I saw it hit her, like glass cracking in slow motion. She was seeing the beginning of the end. The same place I'd stood months before. "I'm not here to take him back," I said gently. "I'm here because I remember what it felt like to be you." Camille bit her lip. "Then tell me, how did you leave?" The question hung between us. And I realized this wasn't just about a man. This was about waking up. You leave when you finally believe your peace is worth more than his potential. That's when she broke. Tears ran silently. And I reached across the table, not as a rival, but as someone who had survived the same fire. She didn't need to be saved. She needed to be believed. After that cafe conversation, something inside me shifted permanently. I had spent so long grieving a man who had never truly seen me. Now, I watched as Camille walked away, not as someone I needed to save, but as someone who now had a mirror held up to her own story. Whether she'd walk or stay wasn't mine to control. But me? I was already free. A week later, I got a text from Landon, the man who once looked me in the eye and told me I was too much for him. "So now you're turning her against me too? Really mature, Harper." I didn't respond. Instead, I took a long, deep breath, lit a cinnamon candle in my apartment, and poured myself a glass of red wine. His chaos no longer reached me. He didn't like that. He sent more messages. Then started calling. From different numbers. Leaving voicemails soaked in panic and guilt, begging for conversation, for closure. But closure had already happened the moment he replaced me and expected me to wait around like an extra piece of furniture. A few days later, I ran into him at a mutual friend's party, one I almost skipped but decided to attend for me. He looked thinner, eyes sunken, smile forced. "Heard you and Camille talked," he muttered as I poured myself some punch. I gave him a neutral smile. "We did. Lovely girl." His jaw tightened. "She's been different since then." "Maybe she's waking up," I replied calmly. "That happens sometimes." He tried to lean into the conversation like old times, bringing up memories, laughing too loudly, pretending we still had some kind of spark. But he was fishing in a pond that had long since dried up. Then came the real kicker. Do you ever think we made a mistake, ending things the way we did? I didn't flinch, didn't flutter. I don't think we ended anything, I said.
You did.
I just accepted it. Landon stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Because I was. I was speaking the language of healed women. Of women who don't chase closure. Who don't wait to be chosen. Who remember who the hell they are. That night, I didn't leave feeling hurt or haunted. I left feeling whole. And for the first time, he was the one watching me walk away. A few weeks passed. Life moved on. I was back in the rhythm of myself. Working late at the design studio, meeting new people, saying yes to things I'd once avoided out of fear I'd upset someone who is no longer even in my life. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. Then, one evening, as I was cleaning out my inbox, a message popped up that made me freeze. Camille. Hey, Harper. I know this is probably weird, but I wanted to thank you again. And just so you know, I left him. You were right. I didn't need a follow-up. I just smiled, feeling a strange sense of completion. But it wasn't over just yet. 3 days later, Landon showed up at my office. Yes, my office. I had just been promoted to creative director at the agency, and this man had the audacity to walk into my space, like time hadn't moved and bridges weren't already burned to ash. Harper, he said softly, eyes pleading. I messed up. I see it now. I stood from my sleek, glass-top desk, straightened my blazer, and looked him dead in the eye. Do you think this is a movie? I asked. Some grand, romantic plot twist where the guy finally gets it and the girl swoons. He blinked. No. I miss you. I made a mistake. No, I said calmly. You made choices. Don't insult both of us by calling them mistakes. He looked down, ashamed. You've changed. I didn't change, I replied. I returned to who I was before you convinced me I wasn't enough. He ran a hand through his hair. Can we at least talk? I shook my head gently. There's nothing left to say. I'm not mad anymore, Landon. I'm just not available. Not to you. Not to your apologies. Not to your chaos. The final blow wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't screamed in the rain. It was delivered in stillness. In clarity. In the quiet confidence of a woman who no longer needed validation from someone who threw her away. He walked out with slumped shoulders. I turned back to my office window, overlooking the city, my city. He thought I was replaceable. Until the new girl called me. Until the chaos turned on him. Until the peace became mine. Life has a poetic way of closing circles. Months passed, and so did the weight of everything that once held me down. Camille and I kept in touch occasionally, short messages, little updates. She found a therapist, started hiking, moved into her own place, and began painting again. I was proud of her, in a quiet, distant way. As for Landon, well, word gets around. I heard he tried patching things up with yet another girl. But something had shifted in him. Maybe it was the guilt, maybe the loneliness, or maybe just the echo of all the women who had finally learned how to leave. Meanwhile, I was flying to New York for a gallery showing my firm had designed. I was mentoring 2 young interns who reminded me of myself when I was unsure and hungry. I laughed more. I loved deeper, from a place of fullness, not lack. One rainy afternoon, while grabbing coffee, I saw him again. He didn't see me. He looked faded. Not tragic. Just like someone who had watched the world he once ruled move on, without asking for permission. And in that moment, I felt no anger. No smugness. No need to prove anything. Because I had already won. Not by revenge. Not by comparison. But by healing. By outgrowing the box he tried to keep me in. By choosing peace over bitterness. By writing a new story, one that never required his name again. And that's the beauty of being replaceable. Sometimes, it means making room for the version of yourself that was always waiting to rise.